I hope you're doing well. I have some honeys to strain off today, and I thought, you know what, I would just do a quick video while I was doing this honey and show a couple things as they have happened, and maybe they will be helpful for some of you. All right, so first off, you can see how this is bent up right here. This is what happens if you turn your honey like you're supposed to when you're infusing or fermenting honey, and then forget to loosen the top when you turn it back over. So I heard a loud pop, and this happens sometimes when I forget. And as long as you come in and loosen it off before the whole thing, you know, pops off, the whole lid will kind of fold and pop out if enough pressure gets built up. So you can see the foaming on top here. Hopefully I'm not yelling into the mic here. I have the mic poking right towards me, which is a little bit unusual for how I usually have this set up. But anyways, you can see the foam and the bubbling, the carbonation. It's just starting to ferment, and I don't want this one too fermented. This is just starting to ferment and get really nice, and this is exactly where I want it. So with my first video that I did on the fermented elderberry honey, I didn't really mention reasons why you might want to let it sit longer or not let it sit longer. And if you let it sit just a little while, whatever root or berry or whatever you're adding to your honey that you're using, that you're wanting to infuse into the honey, so I'm gonna strain this off really quick so you can watch. And I like to use a really fine mesh metal strainer. You can use cheesecloth, you know, or muslin or something like that, but it's really sticky and kind of messy, so I like to use a stainless steel strainer. It's just a lot cleaner and nicer in my opinion. So when you're making an infused or fermented honey, there's multiple reasons why you might want to leave it set longer or not. First off, if you want it to truly ferment, you're going to want to let it sit for at least a good 3 or 4 weeks usually, and a lot of times a full 6 weeks. If you want more of an infused honey and you don't want it to ferment at all, then you just infuse it as long as you can, basically until it just begins to start to ferment. And then you stop and you put it in the refrigerator, or you can warm it up and heat it just to kill the bacteria so that it stops fermenting, and store it that way. Some people add a little bit of alcohol to it and use it like a tincture after that. Even if they don't let it ferment all the way. But for me, if I'm making like a cup of tea and I just want a nice, not super medicinal, like it's not that it's not medicinal, it's just that that's not necessarily what I'm after. I'm after, for the taste, a yummy cup of tea, then I would want more of an infused honey. So like an infused elderberry honey, I let my infused honey sit between 2 and 4 weeks, depending on how cool it is or how warm it is and how fast everything is starting to ferment. And I just let them go right until they start to ferment, just barely, and take it off. So it just smells like a berry honey. It's just a sweet berry infused honey, and I store that in the refrigerator. And then if I'm using different recipes that I like to make and baking, etc., I like to have fermented honey for various other reasons, and sometimes for medicinal reasons as well, because the ferment gives you an extra, mostly kind of prebiotic type action in the gut, which can really be beneficial for immune system stuff. So if you're doing like an elderberry honey or something like that, then the ferment can have an added extra little oomph kind of to a medicinal. But to something like cooking, like this honey, for example, this is ginger and turmeric that I have infused. Mostly ginger. I just had a couple turmeric roots that I wanted to use up because they were getting a little bit shriveled and I didn't want them to go bad, and I wasn't planning on using them that week, so I just threw them into this honey because it's a great combination. And for this particular batch, it's let's see, where's my lid here? How long has this was started October the 24th, and today is now I'm gonna have to look at my calendar. Today is November the 9th, and so it is infused for 3 weeks, just ish, not quite 2 weeks, 2.5. And so And it is starting to bubble and ferment really nicely, but it's not strong yet. It's still very ginger and turmeric-y and less kind of ale smelling, which is how it gets. It smells kind of like a dark ale when it starts fermenting, you know, quite a bit. And so this will be used in stir fry, Chinese cooking, Thai food, just different things that I like a honey and ginger combination with anyways. I make a marinade, multiple things out of this. And so sometimes I like to do this a little bit less fermented than this current state. It's got quite a nice little foam and has a nice ale kind of smell already. It kind of smells like a ginger beer, yeah, or a ginger ale, but anyways, which is pretty much exactly what it is because of the fermentation with the ginger. But oh, lost my thought, sorry you guys. So with these goodies, when you strain it off, when I ferment something all the way, then I don't keep and do anything special with the stuff that I strain off, whether this is elderberries or cranberries or like this is the ginger and turmeric, whatever I'm making. As far as the honey infusion, if it's fully fermented a full 4 to 6 weeks, then generally I don't do anything but compost whatever was left here. However, with the infused honeys, if it's not a full-on ferment and it hasn't pulled all of that out, and I just don't like the taste left for teas, because that's what I'm going to talk about after it's fermented, but as long as it's just infused, whatever is left here I dehydrate and use in teas. So like the elderberries in the honey that I just infused that isn't fully fermented, it's just infused, then I strain the elderberry, all the honey out, save that, bottle that up, use that, and then the elderberries all go in the dehydrator and they get dried, and it takes quite a while because they've been candied. So the immersion into the honey actually kind of candies these berries. So like especially with cranberries, etc. If you've ever had craisins, the dried cranberries, and then they also have quite a bit of sugar in them, and they're just kind of candied like, that's the kind of texture that you're gonna get, and they take quite a lot longer to dehydrate because of the honey content. But I just slide them into a top rack of my dehydrator and leave them in for several cycles as I'm drying other things, and they turn out beautiful. They add a great flavor into tea. They have a sweet, you have kind of a pre-sweetened little bit in your tea of honey, and so for certain tea blends that I make, I really like using the honey infused whatever, be it berries or like in this case the ginger and turmeric goes beautifully in tea also. So this will just get thrown onto a dehydrator tray and dried really well, and I'll probably end up grinding this up a little bit further for tea, although I do really like the chunky kind of look in teas. You can get a lot more bang for your buck if it's a little bit smaller than I had chopped it up for this particular infusion. But I don't like the texture and what happens to the honey if I like kind of shred the ginger and turmeric. It releases a little bit too much moisture into the honey all at once, and it tends to ferment a lot faster. And so especially if I'm wanting an infused honey rather than a fermented honey, I like slightly bigger chunks of the roots rather than it really finely chopped up like it might be handy for tea. So anyways, I wanted to show you guys that and just mention that I use this stuff in teas if I'm not fermenting it fully, if it's just infused. And if you have tried fermenting honey and you're like, well, this is great, but you know, I like it in certain dishes but not in others, try just infusing some. Try putting it in with your honey, just like the video, which I'll put a link in the description box below, of the original video I did of how to do the fermented or infused honey, because it's exactly the same procedure. You just strain it out a little bit sooner for the infused as opposed to the fermented. So I will put a link to that below. My timer for my cookies. I got cookies baking, you guys. Sorry about that. You can tell these videos always end up being very last minute. I am like, oh, gotta strain my stuff. And probably would be nice to make a video while I'm doing that. So, all right, so the cookies are out of the oven. And so now all I'm gonna do is rinse out this jar just to get all the little bits and pieces out really good. And because I don't want to leave any of these in here. And then I'm going to just put this honey that I have strained back into a jar. I probably will add this into a pint jar. I think this is a little bit smaller than what I'm needing for the quart jar. So this will just go into a jar. I'm gonna store this in the refrigerator for now because I have room. You can also heat it up, kill the bacteria, and just store it at room temperature for quite a while, and it will stay good. Quite a while being several months at least. And then this is going to go in the dehydrator and get dried for tea, and we'll have to start a new concoction brewing, right? No, actually I have a lot more stuff to strain, so I don't need to start anything quite yet, but I am gonna start some more root infused honey soon. Hopefully. It is root season finally, and it's been cold enough to dig technically, but the ground has been hard as all get out, and so I've been waiting for rain and hoping that rain would come before snow and really cold weather came, because it's kind of a delicate balance in the fall here of kind of pushing your luck with waiting for a couple good freezes to get the roots kind of set and whatnot, and then going, well, but the ground may freeze up and it may be really hard to dig. So I think we're good, and I think hopefully next week we will get some roots dug, and so I will get some more honey started. I even have ginger that I grew this year, ginger roots to dig up and get going, which is kind of exciting. So at least here in Idaho it's exciting. For people in warmer climates it's probably super normal, but I haven't grown a lot of ginger here and had some extra ginger that was sprouting, and thought, well, I'm gonna plant it, and didn't have very high expectations, but I got a good little batch of ginger, it looks like, so I have to get that dug up. So I think that's it for today. Until next time, happy growing and happy potion making, and I will talk to you soon. You can even just nibble on them. They're delicious if you like candied ginger. But